Hi, I'm Mark, and welcome to the weekly Outside Views report on American politics. Kremlin chief Vladimir Putin has once again lamented the ever deeper US involvement in the war in Ukraine. US reconnaissance has recently used a strategic apparatus to correct the course of 4 drones that had attacked a Russian warship. That's what Putin said at a meeting with Russian war propagandists in Moscow on Tuesday. The Russian air defense shot down the drones. Accordingly, the warship guarding the Russian-Turkish gas pipeline TurkStream remained unharmed. The United States is becoming more and more almost directly involved in this conflict, provoking a serious crisis in international security because correcting drones attacking our warship is a serious matter. They should know that we know about this and are thinking about what we are going to do with it in the future, is what Putin said, as you could imagine. Once again, Putin also criticized the US arms deliveries to Ukraine. The war could stop immediately if these deliveries came to an end, he said at the question and answer session that was broadcast on state television. No, it would end when you just would stop the war. The Western Ukraine, on the other hand, are demanding that Putin withdraw his troops to end the war against Ukraine, and rightly so, because he's the one who can stop it immediately. Putin again described it as unacceptable for Moscow that the Russian-speaking population in eastern Ukraine should be incorporated into NATO. The war is Russia's response to the fact that the West has crossed the red lines in Moscow's national security interests. With his war, Putin also wants to prevent Ukraine's planned NATO membership. The further course of the war now depends on how Ukraine's major counteroffensive goes, said Putin. We have different plans, he says. And Russia will look at the situation after the end of the offensive and then decide on further steps. Russia's invasion goals could be adjusted. In principle, however, nothing has changed. Putin said that Ukraine's military-industrial complex was almost destroyed. The country lives only on Western arms deliveries. Yeah, but we do that. At the same time, he called on the Moscow Ministry of Defense to actually pay the promised kill bonuses for Western tanks and other military equipment. For a downed plane, for example, there are 300,000 rubles, that's around 3,350 euros, in addition to pay. And Russia is also considering withdrawing from the grain deal with Ukraine, according to President Putin. Unfortunately, we have been betrayed once again. Nothing has been done about the liberalization of deliveries of our grain to foreign markets, is how Putin explained this at a meeting with military correspondents on Tuesday. No, that was the propagandist, but the blogger stuff. And he's threatening to withdraw from the agreement. Russia complains about ongoing problems with its grains exports due to Western sanctions, and these sanctions generally make insurance, chartering, and financing of shiploads more difficult. The West would have promised to remove these obstacles, Putin said. Well, the grain deal between Russia and Ukraine was brokered last summer by the United Nations and Turkey, ending Moscow's naval blockade of Ukrainian ports several months after Russia's war of aggression began. The agreement has been extended several times, but most recently only for 2 months each, and the current extension is valid until July 18th. The aim of the agreement was not to help Ukraine, but friendly countries in Africa and Latin America, said Putin. He announced that he would take to the African heads of state about the future of the grain deal. And US Secretary of State Antony Blinken promised Ukraine further support in view of the NATO summit planned for July in Vilnius. I assume that the summit will see a strong package of political and practical support for Ukraine, said Blinken at a meeting with NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg on Tuesday, ignoring Putin, of course. The Defense Alliance summit is scheduled for July 11th and 12th in the capital of Lithuania. Stoltenberg stressed that Ukraine was making progress on its offensive and was indeed gaining ground. But we all know that the more country the Ukrainians can liberate, the stronger their position at the negotiating table will be, is what he said. A strong position in the negotiations makes it more likely that Kremlin chief Vladimir Putin will understand that he will never, ever win this battle. A little later, the NATO Secretary General met US President Joe Biden in the White House. And there, he made it clear that the Russian war of aggression in Ukraine was also an attack on the fundamental values of free people. And therefore, Putin must not win the war. That would make the world more dangerous and send the message to authoritarian states around the world that the use of military force pays off, and that cannot be. For days, the Ukrainian armed forces have been reporting the liberation of a growing number of villages, especially in the Donetsk region, which Russia had annexed. Ukraine has been defending itself against the Russian war of aggression for more than 15 months now. Weapons and ammunition from Western countries help them in this a big time, and that's why Russia and Putin are so angry about those deliveries from the West. And if you want to know more about topics, evolvement, so to speak, and other things on this planet, the next video is right here on the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.